let's just be honest, Chinese motorcycles are a bit strange. You got 8-cylinder Goldwing copies, off-brand Pan Americas, and even dollar store royalty-free S1000RR clones that have 250cc engines. And right when I thought the Chinese motorcycle industry couldn't get any more strange, I became privy to some very peculiar information coming from the old Big Red. Apparently it's in the rulebook in China that any motorcycle older than 13 years must be scrapped. Not exported for sale, not required to go in for inspection or make sure they meet emissions, but scrapped. Junkyard. According to Chinese lawmakers, the mandate is in place to make sure that the vehicles on the roads don't emit too much pollution. And I could understand that if you're talking about vehicles like 30 or 40 years ago, I mean, anybody who's ridden a two-stroke knows how much smoke they emit, but 13 years ago? That was 2011. Is it possible that motorcycles from 2011 were really that bad for pollution reasons? Funny enough, the average age of a motorcycle registered in the United States is 13 years. And motorcycle and car enthusiasts around the world, and specifically in the US, have these fears that the DOT or the EPA or some sort of federal regulatory body is gonna crack down on vehicles that are older and emitting too much pollution. Meaning it doesn't matter how much you cork them up or make them more efficient, but they have to be off the road entirely. And of course, there's the huge market push to have all electric and zero emissions. A vintage motorcycle or car owner's biggest nightmare is that not only can they not ride or drive their motorcycle on public roads anymore, but that it must be destroyed. For now in the United States, we have plenty of laws around vehicle emission inspection testing, smog tests, and other tests to make sure that the vehicle is roadworthy. Results may vary based on your state. And of course, you can't tamper with emission control systems. All new internal combustion engines sold have pretty restrictive catalytic converters that ensure the emissions are actually much better than they used to be. For a classic example of this, look back in the 70s in Los Angeles with how much smog there used to be before we passed catalytic converter measures. Unless you're purchasing an off-road specific vehicle or a competition vehicle, it's required to have a catalytic converter on it. Now, of course, there are motorcycle and car enthusiasts who straight pipe their vehicles, and there are exhaust systems sold that don't have catalytic converters that are meant for off-road or competition use only. And there's always the guy in your town who had his catalytic converter stolen by some random crackhead and can't afford to have it replaced. But when it comes to motorcycles specifically, pound for pound, they're far more efficient than their four-wheeled counterparts. Running a catless exhaust system on your motorcycle is very common. You'll see lots of riders doing this. Many motorcycles have the catalytic converter built right into the muffler that you can slide right off, or it's in a bread box underneath, making it so that you have to take off the headers to swap it out. But for motorcycle inspections, if your state actually does require them, they're far less intensive than for car inspections. They're much more concerned with the tire health, the mirrors, the turn indicators, and the braking components on your machine, way more than the smog that it's going to emit. I personally have gotten a lot of motorcycles inspected and registered in the state of Texas that would never pass in more developed places in the world like California or Europe, especially with the exhaust systems that I've rocked up with. Because at the end of the day, a motorcycle with its smaller engine is just going to produce less emission than a much larger car. It's also going to have less wear and tear on the roads and just be more efficient overall.
Every motorcyclist knows how important it is to be well prepared for a long day in the saddle. Whether you're gearing up for a track day or a long adventure ride, you gotta make sure you've had a nutritious breakfast to get fueled up for your ride. Heck, I can't even roast your favorite bikes on an empty stomach. That being said, I've got some good news. HelloFresh subscribers get free breakfast for life. You heard me right, a free breakfast item with every HelloFresh delivery, so I can make sure I've got a good foundation to start my day. We try to eat pretty well around here, but it can be tiresome searching for new recipes every week and constantly going grocery shopping, especially when we're caring for a new baby in my house. But HelloFresh has plenty of fresh, nutritious meals that I can have sent right to my front door. Their meals are packed with fresh ingredients and everything arrives pre-portioned and ready to cook, saving a ton of time that would otherwise be spent shopping and prepping for ingredients. HelloFresh really suits my busy life because they let you customize easily your delivery from week to week. Mix and match lifestyle options to suit your needs like fit and wholesome, family-friendly, quick and easy, vegetarian, and more. And everything can be tailored to your schedule by adjusting your delivery date and even skipping a week when you're not able to cook at home. So if I have to go to a Ducatista espresso tasting or a Busa Boys Anonymous meeting, I can easily skip a delivery. The HelloFresh menu is seasonal too, so you'll get to enjoy new recipes as the seasonal ingredients change. Thanks to HelloFresh for sponsoring today's video. Go to the link in the description and use my code YAMMYSEP10 and receive 10 free meals plus breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active if you're in the US. The link and the code are valid in all countries and the respective local discounts will apply.
Now, since motorcycles are so much more efficient as a form of transportation, it kind of makes me think that there's something else at play here. Catalytic converters were slower to be adopted on motorcycles, but by 2003, most bikes were coming equipped with them from the factory, so it stands to reason that by 2024, the vast majority of motorcycles being sold in China should have catalytic converters for smog protection purposes. But not all motorcycles are sold with catalytic converters, and these rickety, weird little Chinese copycat bikes that have ungodly little 250cc 4-strokes or weird little 2-stroke engines certainly are not doing the environment any favors. But there has to be some better or more efficient alternative than just simply crushing all of these bikes, right? Especially now in 2024, I feel like a lot of these motorcycles produced from the pre-catalytic converter era probably aren't even on the road anymore due to the fact that they probably didn't last that long to begin with. But the law does get a little bit more complicated, because it doesn't just require bikes 13 years or older to be scrapped. Bikes less than 13 years old but that also reach 74,000 miles must be scrapped, as well as any bike that fails emissions testing 3 times or more, regardless of age or mileage. It seems that the Chinese government is taking all these steps to make sure that Chinese citizens must continuously buy new products instead of keeping their older products and repairing them. So is this law in place to encourage more sales and keep juicing up GDP numbers in China just as much as it is to protect the environment? You guys let me know in the comments section what you think. Because let's be real, destroying, disposing of, and creating new motorcycles for all people to have older motorcycles isn't exactly environmentally friendly either. It's not like raw materials just come out of thin air. You think about all the rare earth metals that need to be mined, the batteries, the casings, the plastics, the production quality. I mean, a lot has to go into making a brand new motorcycle. To my back of the napkin math calculations, I really think that it would probably be most reasonable and efficient to just keep an older bike on the road and somehow make it more efficient for smog purposes. But again, the country that mass produces cheap goods probably doesn't care too much about that. And taking a slightly more conspiratorial angle, is this the reason why Chinese motorcycles are kind of bad? CF Moto notwithstanding. If you own a CF Moto, I know you're already talking in the comments section about it. But if you had an expectation that your motorcycle just needs to last 13 years or 74,000 miles, would you build it to a rigorous standard? Probably not. So it seems to me that if you were a Chinese motorcycle manufacturer and you knew about this law, you wouldn't exactly be incentivized to make the best product, would you? On top of that, China does not have the most stellar reputation for protecting or adhering to intellectual property laws, which is why you get these crazy wannabe R6 moped-looking things that are the cheapest possible things to produce. China used to have similar rules about decommissioning passenger cars after a certain age or mileage, but then the auto industry actually saw diminishing returns as people refused to buy nicer, more expensive models with the fear that they'd ultimately be scrapped while they still had plenty of life in them. It has had a very negative impact on the resale of used vehicles, because let's say you have a 10-year-old motorcycle and you're trying to get rid of it, well, who the hell would want to buy it knowing that they're just going to have 3 more years left of use on that vehicle no matter what? I mean, some Chinese crap bike that has poor manufacturing standards and loose tolerances in the engine is probably going to burn some oil right out of the factory, which is only going to be exacerbated as the age and mileage increases. So maybe if Chinese motorcycles were built a little bit better, they would last longer and they'd be better for the environment, and you wouldn't have this vicious cycle of consumption for goods that just need to be scrapped over time. Like, how would a Chinese motorcycle from 2024 have substantially fewer emissions than a 2020 model with 74,000 miles on it? It just really doesn't make sense. And again, thinking about some of these Chinese bikes making it to 74,000 miles is really wishful thinking. It's laws like this that really compound the fact that China is a very strange dystopia. I mean, have you seen those videos of the Temu shipping facilities? It's kind of crazy. So whether China has this law in place to control emissions or to manufacture demand for consumers to buy more products, either one is kind of a silly and dumb option to me. I can only hope that other countries do not adopt this mentality. Specifically when you look at Japanese motorcycles like a Goldwing that can easily go for 200,000 miles trouble-free, and the owner has the right to repair it, but right to repair is a whole other issue. I mean, it's every California motorcyclist's worst nightmare, right? They're like, hey, your 2010 BMW GS is a little too old to be on the road, but we're gonna give you a $1,500 tax credit to go get a live wire. It really feels like this law is much more about consumer demand and GDP numbers than it is about keeping people safe or keeping the smog down on their streets. But again, it only has a negative impact on the quality of the motorcycles being produced, because when you set up government regulations like this, you create economic incentives to make the worst possible motorcycles because you know you don't need to make them to last. And it's a really tough pill to swallow because we're seeing this in America in a bit of a different way. Brand new vehicles being sold aren't necessarily worse, they're better for a lot of reasons, but they have so many systems and computer processes in place that are going to make these things not last as long of a time. This is why here on the channel we always talk about stuff like, I don't know, the DR650 or the WR250 as just being these indestructible workhorse machines that are simple and are just reliable and gonna keep working over time. But when you live in a world where people wanna trade out cars and bikes every 2 to 3 years just because they like a new colorway, you're not really building a long-standing thing with that. Compound the fact that most people don't even work on their own vehicles anymore, I don't really know if there's a reason to have people keep their cars and bikes for that much longer. Like, are we really expecting someone to go and buy a new Corolla and to keep it for 10 years and replace the oil themselves and do all the work themselves? You look at all the plastic coverings that are inside these vehicles and it's pretty clear. No touch. On top of that, you get special tools from dealerships to do basic service and maintenance on a lot of these vehicles, and it's very clear they just want you to keep upgrading to the next year model. But as we said, there's a lot of processes with rare earth materials to build these things, right? Like electric vehicle batteries take a lot of effort and energy to build, and if you're constantly building new ones instead of just keeping the old ones on the road, that's way less efficient and way less environmentally friendly than just keeping the old cars and bikes on the road. So is this Chinese law a canary in the coal mine for what's gonna happen here in the United States? What do you guys think about this law about China scrapping 13-year-old motorcycles or 74,000 mile bikes? Do you have a nice old BMW GS or Goldwing with way more mileage than that? Let me know in the comments down below. This is a really interesting topic and I'd love to hear your opinions. Thanks so much for checking out today's video. We hope you appreciate it. We'll catch you in the next one. See you later. Keep watching, Abby!